The future of the Calgary Flames is looking a little more sketchy after the Wranglers were battered in the second round of the Calder Cup Playoffs. With the Flames' hopeful future number one goalie and some other recent high draft picks majorly disappointing in the tournament, it's making the future look a little bit worse for Calgary and the Flames. We will get into all of that and more in this video, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I'm Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe because only right around 20% of the people watching are subscribed. So if you want to stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around the Calgary Flames, then make sure you join the fastest growing community of Flames fans on the internet. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family. But like I said, the Wranglers have been knocked out of the playoffs in pretty disappointing fashion. They really did not come to play down in Coachella Valley. And to be honest, it is not a good look for the future of the franchise. Now, the Flames are in a lucky position right now in the way that they have a top 10 pick, and a lot of the future will rely on this draft and hopefully some of the upcoming NHL drafts. But the Flames still have some very good prospects and players down in the AHL that were competing in the Calder Cup playoffs that really didn't come to play, and it has a lot of Flames fans not only disappointed, but also worried. So in case you missed it, Coachella Valley won the series 3-1 in the Pacific Division semifinals. It was a best of 5. Calgary, of course, got that big win in Game 1 at the Saddle Dome. Things were looking great. Playoff hockey in Calgary was so fun. Game 2, and Calgary dropped it in overtime, which was very disappointing. And to be honest, that goal was just the turning point. The overtime winner, I should say, was the turning point of this series and the Wranglers' playoff run as they went down to Coachella Valley. Kind of got beat up in a 7-5 loss. They still scored 5 goals in the loss. And then in the do or die game, Game 4 last night, Calgary couldn't even score and they lost 3-0, which is very disappointing because the Flames, the Wranglers have a lot of players that hopefully will be on the Flames in the near future or did suit up for the Flames at some point this season and want to be a scoring threat in the NHL. Players like Matthew Coronato, Jakob Pelletier, Adam Klapka, Cole Schwindt, Sam Morton, some very, very good forwards that didn't necessarily have the worst playoffs ever, but it's not a good look that they just can't get it done, especially when it matters most in, a game where it's win or you go home, and for none of them to be able to score is a really bad look. If they can't get it done in the AHL, how are they going to get it done in the NHL, especially in terms of the playoffs? Now let's take a look at the leading scores throughout the playoffs for the Wranglers. Klapka, you know what? He actually had a very good playoffs. He scored a beauty goal, he got a couple, and led the team with 7 points in 6 games for over a point per game. He was an absolute stud out there. He did come up to the Flames a few times this season and was honestly pretty good, especially at the end of the year. And hopefully he will secure himself a spot on the Flames come training camp. Coronato, he did end up getting 6 points in the 6 games, but just the 1 goal. And honestly, from what I saw, I expected more out of him. This was a season in the NHL where he was expected to play a full 82 games, and it didn't even come close to that. And then for him to not just be an absolute takeover player in the playoffs either was very disappointing as well. Cole Schwindt led the team in goals with 4. I actually thought he was pretty good. Sam Morton, as you see there, almost the same stats. But the one guy, if you look further down the list, 8th there, Jakob Pelletier was only able to get 1 goal and 2 assists for 3 points in those 6 games, a point every other game, which, again, in no way is that awful, but you'd expect more out of a guy who was sent down to the AHL while he was up in the NHL, of course, so that he would be able to gain his confidence and really help the Wranglers and help himself at the same time. But he just really wasn't that big of a threat out there in these playoffs. Now, of course, you can see it from a statistical point of view with just the 1 goal and the 2 assists. But he also is supposed to have that dog-like approach, super aggressive, and he wasn't all that great at that in these playoffs either. Now, I can't fully say it because I didn't watch every single second of these playoffs, but from what I did see, I expect more out of some of our former high draft picks. It was supposed to be Pelletier and Zary, and thank goodness Zary has taken off because Pelletier, I really, really like him and I want him to be a success. But him being bad, I don't want to say bad, that's harsh, but him not being fantastic for the Wranglers, especially in these playoffs, again, isn't a great look for the future. But the one Wrangler that Flames fans care about the most is, of course, Dustin Wolf, who had a very good first round series in these playoffs, but let's take a look at his stats in the second round here. Oh, well, it actually includes all of them. So as you can see here, in his 6 games in the playoff, the 2 in Tucson, he was amazing. You know, he had a shutout, a 46 save shutout in that first game, but ever since then, it kind of went downhill a bit. He was very good again in the second game against Tucson, you know, another 40 save win, won them the game. In that first game in Calgary as well, really, really good. 35 saves on 36 shots for a .972 save percentage was absolutely amazing. But after that, he just really disappointed and disappointed a lot of fans that want him to be the future number 1 goalie of the Calgary Flames. As you can see there, he gave up 4 goals in the game, 2 against Coachella Valley, and then 6 on 36 shots, which is not what you want to see, an .833 save percentage. He wasn't terrible in the decisive game 4 against Coachella Valley. 3 goals on 32 shots isn't too bad. It's over a .900 save percentage, but he got no run support in that game, and unfortunately they did lose. And a lot of Flames fans are very disappointed in Wolf here. Everyone says he's done everything at the AHL level. He's done everything at the AHL level in the regular season. In the playoffs, he has had some very good games, but he has been so inconsistent in his few years in the organization when it comes to the really clutch time, the time that matters most, and it has a lot of fans disappointed. I still think Dustin Wolf is a very good goalie and needs some development. Obviously, it takes goalies longer than normal, regular skaters. But these playoffs, especially this series against Coachella Valley, has a lot of Flames fans worried, which leads us very well into the next chapter of this video, which is the Tendy Dilemma that the Flames are facing heading into next season. Now, Jacob Markstrom is, of course, still on the roster. He's still a Calgary Flame. Chances are he will get traded this offseason, maybe towards the draft for maybe a higher draft pick, or at least a high draft pick in general. We will see. But if they're both on the team this year, Markstrom and Wolf, who is the number 1 guy? You'd obviously assume it would go to Jacob Markstrom, but a lot of Flames fans don't want that. They want Wolf to get the development he needs, especially in a year where, let's just say Markstrom does get traded. That means the fans who wanted a quick retool and not a rebuild and wanted to push for the playoffs next year, I just don't see that being a reality at all with Dustin Wolf as the number 1. He's a very good goalie, was really good down the stretch for the Flames. But if he's on the team next year, I think you can assume that the Flames will commit more to an actual rebuild instead of this retooling that they keep calling it. You can expect probably not the best year or 2 for the Flames. I'm not saying that's because of Wolf. Of course, I'm not saying that. It's just with all the other changes the Flames have gone through with trading Tanev, Hanifin, and other players as well, as we saw. The Flames probably won't be too competitive next year, especially if Markstrom is traded. Now, let's take a look at Markstrom's contract here. Is it in the Flames' best interest to trade him away? He's got 2 more years left on his contract, $6 million a season. And, a lot of people think if the Flames do trade him away, they'll have to retain some salary. I don't think that's too bad because they won't need to retain too much. But would you, as a Flames fan, rather keep him until the end of the contract, or at least keep him for this whole season and try and keep the Flames competitive, and then maybe flip him at the next offseason or the 2 trade deadlines from now? There's a lot of options here. There is a dilemma. Personally, for me, I hope the Flames do commit to Wolf, even though he had a very sketchy playoffs. But hopefully it will develop him. The Flames can kind of do more of a rebuild than a retooling. And even then, the guy who they pick with the 9th pick, or if they trade up or down, whatever, whoever they pick with their first pick in this draft, maybe he doesn't need to come into the lineup right away if the Flames won't be super competitive next year, and he can develop more in junior or wherever he decides to play, and then the Flames can be real contenders in a couple years from now. I think that's the ideal scenario, but let me know your thoughts down below. What should the Flames do with Wolf and this goaltending situation? Now let's wrap up this video with everyone's favorite part of the day, the comment of the day. It comes from yesterday's video, and I really like this one. It was very thorough and great, and I just completely agreed with everything he said. So let's get into Guitar Memoirs comment here. It begins with Elephantine. Nice. Yeah, I can't believe I actually used that word yesterday. Shout out to Habs Digest. I don't like the idea of moving down. Some draft analysis I have read has a 3rd tier drop off after the 10 hole. Plus, we already have quite a few picks for a change now that Tree Living isn't GM. I like the idea of keeping them unless they are part of a deal that yields a good young center, maybe something like Markstrom with retention and Vancouver's pick to New Jersey for Dawson Mercer. I would honestly hope for a little more in a trade like that, but that is a pretty realistic trade. Although I hesitate to trademarking now, that I have seen Wolfie in round 2 for the Wranglers. Yes, exactly what this video was about. Completely agree there. Yeesh. I don't think giving up picks to move up a couple spots just to get Iggy is smart asset management either. I'm fine drafting at 9. You know what? I completely agree. If you're going to move up in the draft, it has to be because you really, really like a player. I think the Flames will be happy with no matter who they get at 9th pick. So there's no reason to spend extra assets in a tree living way in order to maybe get more of a gamble. Tree Living did a lot of gambles towards the end of his tenure with the Flames, and it hasn't worked out. We'll see what he does with the Leafs as well, as they're kind of going through a similar sort of big-time scenario where changes are coming like Calgary has. But either way, I completely agree with you there, Guitar Memoir. I really think the Flames should keep all their assets and just draft at 9th. You're going to get a really good player, and definitely don't trade out of the top 10 either. Make sure you get that top 10 talent. Thank you so much for commenting. Make sure you comment down below if you want to be featured on a future segment of Comment of the Day. But thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you like what you saw here today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.